Thank you for joining us for this Arapahoe County COVID-19 telephone town hall. If you'd like to ask a question tonight, simply hit *3 on your telephone keypad and an operator will come and take your question. If you're listening online, you can type your question into the question box on the website. My name is Dirk and I'll be your moderator. Tonight we'll spend our time talking about the general election, which is already underway and ends on Tuesday, November 3rd. Joining us tonight, we have Arapahoe County Clerk and Recorder Joan Lopez, as well as Elections Director Peg Pearl, to tell us how you can stay healthy and cast your ballot in the election. We'll also give a brief update on the pandemic with our friends at Tri-County Health. I want to start tonight with a welcome from Arapahoe County Commissioner and Board Chair Nancy Sharp. Nancy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thanks to everybody for joining us. You know, conducting fair and transparent elections is one of the county's most important functions, and we're happy to have so many listeners participating tonight. We know that people have more questions than usual this year, and that's why we thought it's important to have our election experts explain the process. We want to get some valuable, to give you some valuable information tonight. So please stay tuned. We have a lot of ground to cover, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Commissioner, for setting the stage for tonight's discussion. Before we get into election-specific information, we do want to check in with Dr. John Douglas. He's the Executive Director of the Tri-County Health Department, and he has some important updates on Arapahoe County's spot on the state's COVID dial system. Good evening, Dr. Douglas.
Yeah, good evening, Dirk. Very nice to be with all of you. I think this is an incredibly important town hall on the eve of Election Day next week. Let me say a few things about the COVID situation in Arapahoe County. Like Colorado, like the metro area, really like the entire country, Arapahoe County is continuing to experience an increase in the number of cases. Not only are our cases going up, but we're seeing an increase in hospitalization as well. And as our hospitalizations go up, we're starting to feel a little squeeze on our hospital capacity. All of those, the convergence of all of those things is concerning. And Arapahoe County, as of yesterday, entered a new phase of what's called the dial. Dirk referred to that. This is the state's public health framework for determining when based on the number of cases in a county, based on whether hospitalizations are going up, based on the percent of tests that are done that are positive, capacity in certain facilities in the community changes. So as of 5 p.m. yesterday, we entered what's called level 2. That's a level of concern. That means that restaurant capacity drops, manufacturing, offices, gyms, retail, personal services, capacity in houses of worship. This is very much intended not to be punitive. Let me underline that, because what I want to also acknowledge is that after 8 months of dealing with COVID, most of you, certainly me, are feeling COVID fatigue. I think it's a very real issue. I think our mental health has really been impacted by this. This is intended really to try to nip the rise in the bud by reducing capacity in a somewhat less stringent way than we did last spring during the statewide stay-at-home order. We very much hope that we can turn the corner, allow the rates to go back down, allow our community to be safer, allow our facilities in the community to be safer for us to attend, to give our schools more breathing room to remain open. Several have decided to go remote recently. We really would like to avoid that. I want to remind all of us that to a large extent, the trajectory of how things go in Arapahoe County is in our hands. We find that the most common places we think people are getting exposed to infections is with their friends, hanging out in personal spaces. We're social creatures. We want to be with other people. We've just got to do that now in a safe way. Safe means small numbers, wearing a mask, washing our hands. being as well ventilated as possible, keeping windows open. It's going to be a nice weekend. Do those gatherings outdoors. If you happen to have a risk condition, such as you're older than 65 or have an underlying illness, you're at greater risk of getting ill. You need to be especially careful. And finally, don't forget to get your flu shot. We're doing better this year, but we are starting to see our first reported cases. And if we can control the flu, that'll give us more breathing room. So we're in challenging times, but we think we're going to be able to manage it with everybody's cooperation. Thanks very much, Dirk.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas, for that update and your insights. Now we're queuing up some questions now. So if you're on the phone with us and you have a question you would like to ask tonight, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. Let's now bring on Arapahoe County Clerk and Recorder Joan Lopez for an overview of this upcoming election.
Good evening, listeners. We're happy to announce that we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm and high voter turnout this election cycle. I'd like to start with a reminder that it is too late to return your ballot by mail. So please use a 24-hour drop box or bring your voted and signed ballot to a voter service and polling center to drop it off. As Dr. Douglas mentioned, we're still dealing with a lot of lifestyle changes to deal with COVID-19. I'd like to take this opportunity to share some options and allow you to stay safe and healthy as you cast your ballot. We recommend using a drop box because they are contact-free, available 24/7, and they offer the convenience of being able to take your time to review the issues and candidates before turning in your ballot. If you do plan to vote in person, we recommend that you do it now. All voter service and polling centers will be open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. tomorrow, Saturday and Monday, allowing you to beat the last-minute crowds and minimizing exposure. And remember, polls are open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Election Day, Tuesday. Here are some of the precautions that we are taking to protect voters at our VSPCs. All locations will have masks available if you forget yours. Voting equipment is sanitized after each use. Gloves and hand sanitizer are available. Social distancing will be reinforced to keep voters spaced 6 feet apart. If you aren't feeling well and are self-isolating or may have been exposed to COVID-19, we recommend you return your ballot to a drop box or use our curbside services instead of VSPCs, or call our voter hotline at 303-795-4511 and ask about our emergency ballot options. Back to you, Dirk.
Great information there. Thank you, Clerk Lopez. Let's keep that good information coming with Elections Director Peg Pearl, who has some tips to share before we take some calls. Peg?
Thank you, Dirk. Joan mentioned we've received a lot of ballots by the Postal Service or from drop boxes, and one common mistake that voters make sometimes is forgetting to sign their ballot. We also have some signatures each election that don't match the ones that we have on file already. So if this applies to you, an email or a letter or both will be sent to you from the clerk's office. Please follow the instructions on that letter and you can cure your ballot. You must respond by text or email or mail or fax or even returning it in person, but it must be by Thursday, November 12th for your ballot to be accepted and processed. I'd also like to inform listeners about a healthy option to replace your ballot. If your ballot was lost or damaged or your cat tore it up, we did recently have a voter reach out because of that one, you can get a replacement without coming inside a VSPC or inside one of the vote centers, with our curbside pickup service. You just call our elections hotline at 303-795-4511. You can choose the date, time, and vote center that's convenient from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on these remaining days, Friday, Saturday, and Monday, and the last appointment even goes till 3 p.m. on Election Day, Tuesday. Arrive with your ID and park in one of our designated curbside pickup spots, and an election judge will bring your ballot out to your car. Anytime a ballot is replaced like this, your mail ballot is automatically voided to prevent any type of double voting. Details are available on our website, arapahoevotes.com, or our elections hotline, which again is 303-795-4511. Thanks, Dirk. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Peg, and I want you to hold on the line with us here because we're about to go to the Q&A portion of this call, and our first caller is going to come towards you to answer. But as a reminder, if you have a question you want to ask about voting in Arapahoe County, press star 3 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. So let's get to those calls. As I mentioned, we've got Eric from Centennial joining us right now. Eric, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question.
My question is, do you need a ballot ID or can it be expired?
So, Eric, thanks for that question. We have a number of types of ID that can be used for voting in person. So if you're talking about something like a driver's license or a passport, which has an expiration date, if you want to use that, it does have to be valid and not expired. However, there's a whole other list of items that you can use as an ID instead that we have listed from our website, arapahoevotes.com, and the Secretary of State's website as well, Go Vote Colorado. You can bring other types of information like a copy of a utility bill or a bank statement, for example. So if you have a passport or a driver's license, it does need to be valid and not expired. So you might want to consult that list to see one of the maybe 8 or 9 other options that you would want to bring instead.
Thank you, Ms. Pearl. I think you're going to be the belle of the ball, at least for these first couple of callers. If you stay on the line with us here, I've got Robinson joining us now. Sir, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
Thank you for having this forum. I registered for the ballot tracking information, and that was on October 14th. My ballot was received on October 15th, but I have not seen any information about validation of my signature. So my question is, when is that done to validate my signature, and when will I be receiving a text message?
Thanks for your question, and thank you for signing up for Ballot Track. So Arapahoe County has used Ballot Track for many years, and this year the state has adopted this great program for the whole state. The way we use Ballot Track in Arapahoe County is to give you that information that your ballot has been received by Arapahoe County. We do not use it to tell you information about your signature verification. As I said, if your signature has a problem and has been rejected and needs to be cured, we will send you an email or a letter in the mail. And if you do not receive an email or a letter in the mail, good news. So it's no news is good news. That means that it's been accepted. But if you want to go double check, you can actually look yourself up on the Secretary of State's website, which is govotecolorado.gov, and that will tell you whether your ballot status is accepted. But we do not push out text messages about the status of signature verification. That has to be done by letter or email or both.
All right, Peg, here's a question that just came in from Lauren online, who asks or states, I moved to Arapahoe County 2 weeks ago and have not yet updated my registration. Should I vote in the county I moved from or in Arapahoe County?
Well, Lauren, welcome to Arapahoe County. You are an Arapahoe County voter now. Since you've moved here, you should be voting and registering in Arapahoe County. But it's real easy to update your registration. All you need to do is you can go to govotecolorado.gov and do it online, and then contact us either for a curbside ballot pickup or come in to one of our vote centers. Starting tomorrow, we're going to have 28 vote centers open. Or you can just go straight to one of those 28 vote centers and do the registration and voting all at the same time. But you're an Arapahoe County voter, and we're happy to have you. So get on to voting with us.
All right. So, Ms. Pearl, another question for you. We've got Rose joining us on the line from Aurora. Rose, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, my question was for individuals who have tested positive for coronavirus. The first question would be, are they supposed to be putting their ballots in the box with that contamination factor? And then also, if they're too sick to leave their bed, is there going to be an extension of some sort, or how will they get their ballots in?
Thanks for your question. Yeah, thank you, Rose. This is definitely a unique time, and we want to make sure that everyone can vote while staying safe and healthy. So for those who are right now trying to recover from COVID, they can also put their drop box or their ballot in a drop box, or if someone can deliver it to a drop box for them, that is not a problem. We have safe handling procedures at our warehouse to take those ballots. We also do have different procedures under state law for what's called an emergency ballot for people who are experiencing a health related emergency, which quarantine because of a COVID positive test would qualify for. So we would have those people call our voter hotline at 303-795-4511 and talk to our voter services department, and they will help you decide what the best emergency ballot situation might be. That you might be able to have another person in your family take a ballot back and forth, or there's a couple of options they can talk to the person about who's experiencing that healthcare crisis.
All right, Peg, I'm going to go ahead and take a little detour next before we get to more questions for you. That way you can kind of take a breath and hydrate. Our next question is coming from Daniel in Centennial. It's going to be about trick-or-treating, and it's going to come towards you, Dr. Douglas. But before we bring Daniel on the line, I do want to remind everyone who's listening, if you have a question that you would like to ask, please press star 3 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. Again, we're talking about elections in Arapahoe County, star 3 on your telephone keypad. But as I mentioned, the important question about Halloween is next. Daniel, welcome to our call. Go ahead with your question.
Well, yeah, I'm wondering what the guidelines are for kids in trick-or-treating this Halloween on Saturday.
So, Daniel, it's a very relevant and timely question. Of course, it's just around the corner. Basically, the guidelines are governed by our level, this level 2, and the most practical matters have to do with personal gatherings. So personal gatherings are limited to 10 people or less. That's both indoor and outdoors. What we recommend from Tri-County on top of that, and by the way, we do have a Halloween tip sheet on our website, is first of all, if you go out trick-or-treating, do it in a really small group, wear a mask. Even if you've got like a Groucho Marx face on, wear a mask, a cloth mask underneath that. Don't congregate in large groups. Again, you've got that 10 gathering rule outside. If you're distributing trick-or-treats from your porch, really try to do so with a mind toward good hygiene. Try to provide some way. Many people are thinking about leaving a bowl at the end of the porch and letting a kid pick the candy out of the bowl, or you can use a device to drop a piece of candy into the kid's bag. Use hand sanitizer for yourself. Please wear a mask. And it's going to be warmish on Halloween evening, but then it may be getting cold. And one thing you might want to do is actually consider shutting down early. We'd like our kids to be out when they can do this safely. So those are the general approaches that we're recommending. And again, there's more information on our website.
Thank you very much, Dr. Douglas. Moving on to an online question. And Ms. Pearl, you're back up. This question comes from Stella, who says, I heard the polls close at 7 p.m. on Election Day. What happens if lines are long and people are still waiting to vote when the polls close?
Well, no problem, Stella. We, under state law, anyone who is in line at 7 p.m. is allowed to continue and vote. So our workers, our election judges at the polls are trained to go and have a sign and find the last person in line at 7 p.m., and they will mark that off as the last person who gets to vote, and we will serve them however long it takes. We're certainly hoping we won't have late lines. We've seen great turnout so far, and we want to avoid that. But everybody who is in line at 7 p.m. will be able to vote.
Thank you for that answer. And we're going to switch it up with one for Clerk Lopez. Another online question from Mason. Question is, how do I know my vote is safe if I drop it by ballot in a drop box or mail it in?
Thank you for that question. So all of our boxes, 33 boxes across the state, are covered by video surveillance, 24-hour video surveillance. We also have teams of bipartisan teams to collect each ballot box, and we take it over to the warehouse. And then again, after that, we have a staff member check it in with a security seal, and they check the security seal to make sure both judges signed that particular log sheet for that security box, that they filled all the ballots up. And the process continues with security teams and bipartisan teams and video surveillance all through the warehouse when it's processed.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Clerk Lopez. Moving back to Ms. Pearl, we've got Carl from Aurora joining us on the line. Carl, welcome to the call. What is your question?
Hi, thanks for taking my question. This is about the ballot tracking. So I signed up for ballot tracking and text messaging, and I was under the impression that Arapahoe County counted the ballots as they came in. I received a notice that it was sent and that it was received, but nothing about it being counted. I checked online and it shows the same thing. So how do I know when it's been counted?
Thank you for your question, Carl. So we do send out the messages when it is received back here at the county warehouse for processing. If you want to make sure that your vote has been through the signature verification process and you haven't received a cure notice from us, which is good news, but you want to double check that it has been accepted and is going through the process all the way to the end of counting, you can look yourself up on govotecolorado.gov. with your name and your birthday. That's the Secretary of State's website, which will give you your most current ballot status, and it will say the word accepted if it is already through that process. We do begin already scanning ballots. We've, in fact, already scanned over 242,000 ballots, have made it through signature verification so far this election. So you'll just need to check that website, govotecolorado.gov, and look yourself up there.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pearl. Now, as a reminder, if you've got a question you would like to ask, it's very simple to do. If you're listening on the telephone, please press star 3 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. Again, star 3 will get you into the question queue to ask a question live on the call. If you're listening to this conversation through the website, all you need to do is input your name and question right there on the website. Our next question is going to Dr. Douglas. We've got Rainey from Aurora joining us on the line. Rainey, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you. My question would be regarding COVID testing. If a person were to get tested, they could have a result of false positive or false negative. Is there one test that's better than another? And should they rely on the first test that they get, whether it be false negative, false positive?
So, Rainey, these are good questions. You've been, I can tell, reading a lot about testing, and it can be confusing. The most accurate test, we think, is the PCR test. It's a genetic test. It's one that takes several days to come back. It's the one we've been using since the epidemic began. We think it's got the lowest rate of false negatives, meaning if you're infected, we think it's got the highest likelihood of telling you have it, and also the lowest rate of false positives. The problem with that test is that it takes a couple of days to come back. There's a newer group of rapid tests. These operate on a slightly different principle, and their beauty is that you can get results back in about 45 minutes to an hour. The downside is that there are higher rates of false negatives. In other words, if you're infected, you can't rely on a negative test. On the other hand, if it's positive, it's probably real. I think the only time I really recommend repeat testing is in the circumstance of somebody who's feeling sick, they get a rapid test, it's negative, and because you can have a false negative, that's when they ought to get the PCR test. I don't think right now there's a whole lot of reason, unless you're in a very unusual situation and a doctor's evaluating you, to get a second PCR test.
Dr. Douglas, thank you for sharing that great information. And thank you to all the callers for your fantastic questions. Now's the time to press star 3 on your telephone keypad if you have a question you would like to ask. We're talking about elections in Arapahoe County, so let's go back to Clerk Lopez. Could you tell us about some of the ways you've improved voter access this election?
Absolutely, Dirk. One way we're improving voter access and reducing crowds and lines across our voting centers is by adding new locations for our voting centers and drop boxes. We have a new pop-up voting center at Arapahoe Crossing that will be open tomorrow through Tuesday. Voters in Aurora, Foxfield, and Centennial can drop their ballot on their way to King Soopers. Other new VSPCs, which is voting center locations, is Aurora, including the Central Recreation Center, Arapahoe County Fairgrounds, and at the Community College of Aurora campuses at Lowry and Center Tech. We also installed 7 new drop boxes this year across the county. These include brand new boxes in Aurora at Saddle Rock Golf Course, at RTD's Iliff Station parking garage, and at the Central Recreation Center. We also have added a drop box at Coble Library, so Centennial voters can drop off their ballots when they're returning their library books.
Thanks, Joan. Now, a free service that you should know about is Ballot Track, which allows you to receive notifications by phone, text, and email when your ballot is received for processing by the Elections Division. Now, to register for Ballot Track, simply visit arapahoevotes.com and click the Track My Ballot button in the drop-down menu. Now, looking at the clock, we're just about halfway through this telephone town hall on safe and healthy voting options. So let's go back to the phones and take some more questions. Next up, for Peg Pearl, we've got Cheryl in Aurora joining us. Cheryl, go ahead with your question, please.
Oh, I think you answered it and told me where the drop boxes were. So I think you answered my question.
Okay, very good.
I don't have a car, so it's hard for me to get places.
All right. Well, Peg, go ahead, ma'am.
I was just going to say, Cheryl, if you're looking for a place to drop off your ballot and transportation is limited for you, what I would suggest is that you call our voter hotline at 303-795-4511, and they can talk to you on the phone looking at the map of all of our locations. Joan just mentioned some of them, but they can talk you through which ones are closest to you and your transportation routes and find the perfect place for you to drop it off. So I suggest you call our voter hotline so they can help you find the right one for you.
Moving on, we've got Lori from Centennial joining us on the phone, and Peg, this one's coming to you too. Lori, welcome to our call. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, my son lives in Park County, and he wanted to know if he could drop his ballot in my county, in the Arapahoe County drop box.
Thanks, Lori. That is fine. As long as you drop your ballot in any county official ballot drop box before 7 p.m. on election night, all of us election departments in different counties work together, and we transfer those ballots over to the proper county so that it will be counted. We'll accept it, and we'll get it over to Park County for him. That works just fine.
So thank you to everyone who's joined us for this conversation tonight, and we want to hear from you. If you have a question you would like to ask, please press star 3 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue to ask a question live on this call. Again, star 3 if you have a question you would like to ask. And Miss Pearl, joining us now on the line, we've got Luz from Aurora. Go ahead to ask your question. We're standing by. Oh, did we end up with try one more time for Luz? Luz, hello?
Hello?
Yes, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, so we moved from California to Aurora about 6 months ago, and we would like to know how can we register to vote. We tried to do it online, but since our IDs are still from California and we don't have our appointment until December, it looks like we can register online.
So, yes, you can still register and vote at the same time by coming into one of our vote centers. You will just have to bring a different type of identification, not your California driver's license. So if you go to our website, arapahoevotes.com, you'll see the list of items that counts as an identification. You'll be able to fill out the voter registration form with your Social Security number and then show something like a bank statement or a utility bill or something that is one of those Colorado documents, which will be the other half of your identification so that you can register and vote at the same time. So if you go to arapahoevotes.com, you can see that list of identification and the places to go for the vote center, and you can do both of those anytime between now and Tuesday that those vote centers are open.
All right, we've got a question now, looks like for Dr. Douglas. Karen in Englewood joins us on the phone. Karen, go ahead with your question, please.
First of all, Dr. Douglas, thank you so much for all your hard work in all these months. We really appreciate you. So my question is, if you are sent home from work being told that you were exposed to somebody with a positive test, what is the sequence that you recommend people do? Do they have to automatically go out and get a test? Do they have to notify everybody at their church if they've been at church within the last week? What do you recommend a person does in that situation?
Karen, thanks for your appreciation, and your question is really a great one. So if you're told by your employer, gosh, you've been exposed, you should go home, first of all, you should receive a confirmatory phone call from one of our public health workers in a couple of days. We do try to reach out to everybody who's been identified as a contact. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and in that case, what you need to do is to undergo what's called quarantine, which is a fancy word meaning you need to stay at home for 2 weeks, avoid contact with other people. If you have needs in terms of getting food and things like that and don't have anybody to help you, we have a team that can help with that. If you begin to feel sick, that's when you want to get a test, because your chances of your sickness representing COVID are going to be higher than the background. Many people, kind of get a little antsy and get curious and will seek a test before the end of their 2-week quarantine. We think the best time to do that is at about 7 days. The benefit of doing that is if you happen to get infected and you have what we call asymptomatic infection, then you know it right there. The downside to that is it doesn't mean if you have a negative test that you can leave quarantine, because at least at this point we think you need to stay sequestered away from other people for 2 weeks. So it can be a little complicated, and that's why we try to talk people through it. But those are the general outlines of what we ask people to undergo.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Douglas. Moving back to another caller here, Ms. Peg Pearl, this one's coming at you. Carissa, calling in from Centennial. Go ahead with your question, please.
Hi, I just want to make sure I understand. I mailed in my ballot, and the website does say your county has accepted your ballot for counting. Does that mean you've just received it from the mail, or has it made it to the processing center?
Thanks, Carissa. That means it has been received here and accepted and moved into the counting process. So
Okay,
that
perfect.
word accepted means that it has made it through to the second stage. So you sound like you're all ready to go.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pearl. And as a reminder, please, if you've got a question, now is the time to press *3 so we can get to it tonight during this live call. So press *3 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue to ask a question. Looks like our next question comes from Nicole in Centennial, and Tri-County Health would be a good. Let's go to Melissa Sanger to answer this one. Nicole, welcome to our call. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, my question is if I'm going into public places and I'm seeing people in the business that don't have masks on, for instance, like a gas station or a restaurant, and I'm referring to the workers, is there a number to call, or what steps can we take to, if somebody isn't following the state order?
Nicole, thank you so much for that question. Our enforcement efforts are complaint-based. You can give us a call at 303-220-9200. You can also visit our website at tchd.org. If you type in report a problem in the search bar, it'll give you an option to report a problem, which includes violations of the public health orders. With that, we focus our efforts on education, and if mask wearing is a problem, we even have a program to connect our businesses with logoed masks for their business. So we encourage you to reach out. We're always trying to connect our businesses with resources and information, and we can only do that if you let us know that they need that. Thanks.
All right. Next up, we've got a call from Bob. Bob, this question looks like it can go to Ms. Pearl as well. You're live, sir, so go ahead with your question, please.
Hello. My daughter had lived with us for a while, and we got our ballots right after they sent them out, almost immediately. And she filled hers out and returned it. But before we received them, about 2 weeks before, they had bought a house and moved. And now, but she got her ballot here. But now, the other day, she got another ballot at her new address. So what should she do with it? She's not going to vote it, of course.
Thanks, Bob. No, she just voting once. This is sometimes a little hiccup in the system with people who move right around Election Day. What happened is she changed our address with us in between when we mailed our first mailing of ballots out and when then the second one went out. And so we sent a new one thinking that the other one didn't get to her because she had changed her address with us. This happens a lot. When people move right by the election, it happens. So when we send one out or one gets voted, the other one will be void. There's no way to actually vote both ballots. So if she's already voted and turned in that ballot, that is what will be counted. The extra blank ballot that came to the other address, she can go ahead and shred it. It has already been voided in the system and would not be able to be voted anyway. So just shred or dispose of it safely. Thank you.
All right, moving to an online question. And this one looks like it'll go for Clerk Joan Lopez. So Laura asks, what are you doing to keep your staff members and volunteers safe while they work at the polls?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that question. We are doing quite a few things. First of all, we do every judge has to do an online survey before they come to work every single morning. We do temperature checks. We have PPE available for them, so we have masks, sanitizer. We have plexiglass at some of our our call center. Social distancing. We're actually making sure that their shifts are separated. So in case of an outbreak, we are sure to not have all of our judges be infected. So a lot of checks and balances, and we're making sure that everyone's safe, and we're also making sure that voters are safe as well when they come in to vote, making sure that social distancing is a priority. And also PPE available for voters as well.
Thank you for that answer, Clerk Lopez. And we've got another caller now. This one is John in Centennial. Dr. Douglas, this one will come to you. John, welcome to the call tonight. Go ahead with your question, please.
Great. Hi, and thanks so much for hosting this town hall. It's fabulous. My question is around the testing support during this surge. We've noticed that the capacity has been stressed, and it's even hard to get an appointment time to get seen. What are you doing to mitigate that, and what should we do given that you're just starting the surge so that we're getting tested quickly and getting our results so we know if we're infectious or not?
John, thanks. This is a really vitally important question. First of all,
what?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
We
Hello?
hear you, Doctor.
Yeah, sorry, a little background noise. Good question, John. Let me say a couple things. First of all, this is a moving target. You're absolutely right. As the surge goes on, the demand for testing goes up, and we're sort of constantly running to keep up with that. Number two, what you did, call ahead, check, is critical because places will be in good shape on a Monday, and then they'll be swamped on a Wednesday, and then by Friday they'll be unswamped again. Number three, we're really working hard with the county. There was a large drive-in testing site set up at the Aurora Sports Park. We thought that the need for that was beginning to diminish. That was closed. We discovered that with the surge, we needed more capacity. The county really stepped up. That's been reopened. We've got another one planned in the city of Centennial that ought to be opening soon. We're exploring other options as well. The third thing, I think I'd say we're trying to do is to really identify opportunities for more of the rapid testing that was mentioned earlier. It's not quite as sensitive, but it is fast, and in some ways, fast and slightly less accurate can be even more useful than the slower test. So to wrap it all up, this is not a perfect situation. As you will remember from the spring and even the summer, when demand goes up in other places, we sometimes have to scramble to get sufficient supplies and sufficient testing capacity. I think the governor has set this as a very high priority. He's helped us with these large testing sites. So I'm confident that we're going to find a way to do it, but it may look different one week to the next because of these various challenges.
So I really have to say we are getting some good questions tonight as well as giving good answers. I want to thank you callers as well as Joan and Peg for your answers. Now, Peg, we heard some additional information from Clerk Lopez before the callers. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we go back to the phones?
Yes, I would like to remind everyone listening, there's a lot of information out there about the election and a lot of misinformation on social media lately. The best thing you can do to stay informed is to rely on trusted sources of information. That's like our website, arapahoevotes.com, the Secretary of State's official website, govotecolorado.gov. And before sharing or posting any links that may not be accurate, please verify the information. Just fact check it on one of those sites. Or you can always call our election hotline when they're open during the day, 303-795-4511. We'll answer any questions you have. Thanks, Dirk.
Thank you, Peg. And now let's take a few more calls before we wrap things up. We've got Candace joining us from Aurora, and Ms. Pearl, it's coming to you. Candace, welcome to our call. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I was wondering if it is possible to change your vote. I've had some friends ask me how to go about doing that. They voted early when they first got their ballot, and since then have received information about some of the candidates that is troublesome, and they would like to change their vote. Is there a way to do that?
Well, Candace, thank you for the question. Here in Colorado, under Colorado law, once you have turned in your ballot and it's received by the clerk's office, you have voted. And so, as I said before, you can only vote once, and that vote is received and processed immediately through the process. And there is not a way for you to go back and somehow pull that back and change your vote and vote again. So once you've already turned in your mail ballot, and we have it here at the clerk's office and have received it and are working on it, you cannot change your vote and vote a second time.
Thank you for that answer, Ms. Pearl. And here comes another question. Oh, and it's going to come to you. We've got Gloria from Littleton joining us. Gloria, go ahead with your question, please.
Hi, thank you for holding this town hall. It's great. I'm wondering when the various campaigns can find out that we have voted, because they are having some aggressive GOTV operations involving texting, and I don't know, they don't seem to have gotten the word in all cases.
Hi, Gloria. I understand. I know how my phone gets blown up sometimes by text messages as well. We post the information for our county every day at the end of the business day. We update our records of who's voted and who hasn't voted. It's up to those different campaigns and third parties and organizations to make sure that they are updating their databases. I'm not really sure what that process is on their side, but we do update a lot of information and voter lists on our website, the ones that are available to the public, like that public information that you have voted. We update them at least once every business day on our website. So hopefully they will update their list soon.
All right, we've got Todd from Southeast Aurora joining us on the phone, and this question looks like it's going to go to you, Dr. Douglas. Todd, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question.
Hey, good evening, everybody. And I just want to say thank you for all the humility and humbleness that's on this call with everybody. It's a blessing, and if we all respect our neighbors as we respect ourselves, this world would be a better place. I just want to say that real quick. But I do have a question. If we're in level 2, and I'm an essential employee, when we all first started with the COVID, when it all started, then we had to identify if we were an essential employee, okay? My concern is about the travelers, from state to state to state. I was supposed to go to New York, New Jersey area on Monday, and that's a really high-risk area. So I made a personal choice not to do that because I have family here and all these other concerns, and I wasn't being over-exaggerated about it, but it is a big concern. So can we talk about the traveling part of all this COVID and stuff like that?
Yeah, the traveling is really an important question, Todd. I will say that a little bit like the answer I gave to the testing question, it's a moving target. If you're talking about air travel, I would say that the airlines have stepped up, and the information we're getting now, and I can tell you this from personal experience as well, is they're actually doing really, I think, a very solid job. They're taking the wearing of masking by their travelers quite seriously. Some still, though unfortunately not all, have middle seats that are free. They're not selling the middle seats. That gives you more personal spacing. I think their staff are well trained in really not letting people slip by with poor behavior. I think the potentially vulnerable points are the airports themselves. When you come in, especially if you check a bag, you've got to get into sometimes crowded situations. And when you get off, sometimes terminals are crowded. I do think that as our rates go up nationally, and they are going up nationally, although, oh, by the way, New York is actually a lot safer than Colorado right now, we're going to all have to kind of recalibrate our willingness to take that risk. On the airplane, I think it's good. Generally in the airport, likewise. But the more people that we're all around, the more our risk actually is. The last thing I'd like to say is I appreciate your beginning point about respecting our neighbors. That's really key to what we're going to be able to do to prevent COVID, whether it's in our communities or on airplanes. So thanks for the question and that comment.
Thank you very much, Dr. D. And Ms. Pearl, we've got Mona from Aurora joining us, and I think you can answer this. Ms. Mona, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question.
I just wanted to follow up and clarify from a previous question on Ballot Track. If it says accepted, does that mean the signatures have been checked, or it's just been accepted and received, and there still has to be a check of the signature on the back of the envelope?
Thanks, Mona. If it says accepted, that means that it has gone through the signature verification. And again, the most important thing about signature verification is no news is good news. So if your signature did not match, we, under the law, have to send you a letter by email and U.S. mail within 2 days of us deciding your signature does not match. So if you look yourself up and it says accepted and you have not received any sort of letter from the clerk's office saying that you need to fix your signature, those two things together means that your ballot have definitely gone through the process and it has been accepted for counting.
All right, looks like we've got time for just one more question. And this last question comes from online. Larry submitted it, and I think it's a good one for Clerk Lopez. Larry says, I never got a ballot. What do I do?
Yes, very easy. You're going to go on Arapahoe Votes, look at your closest voting center, and then you can receive a ballot. Make sure that you bring your ID, and of course, make sure you live in Arapahoe County, and we'll definitely help you out. You can actually check a list of ballot IDs on our website, arapahoevotes.com, or you can actually go to the Secretary of State to govotecolorado.gov. But make sure you do that before election night at 7 o'clock.
So we hope you have found this telephone town hall to be beneficial. We're approaching the top of the hour, but Joan and Peg would like to give everyone listening just a couple of important reminders before we go. So we're going to go to the bell of the ball. Ms. Peg Pearl, will you start us off, please?
Thanks, Dirk. Just remember, voters, please sign your ballot envelope before turning it in. And if you know your signature has changed over the years or you think you have forgotten to sign your ballot, just watch for a letter or email about curing your ballot, which will come from our office. And then just follow the instructions on that letter, and your vote will be counted. Over to you, Joan.
Thank you, Peg. Remember, voters, all VSBC voting centers and 24-hour drop boxes close at 7 p.m. exactly this Tuesday, November 3rd. If you haven't voted already, please do it now by returning your ballot to a drop box or vote in person this weekend to avoid the crowds. Back to you, Dirk.
So we have covered a lot of ground tonight, and our time is almost up. I'd like to turn things over now to commissioners for some closing remarks. Let's start with Commissioner Kathleen Conti.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. And thanks to our guests for providing such valuable information and advice about voting safety during the pandemic. We hope that you've been able to clarify any questions or concerns that you have. We also urge everyone to drop their ballot in a drop box or follow these guidelines closely if you'll be voting in person. And here's Commissioner Holand to tell you more about that.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thanks to everybody who participated and listened in tonight. We hope that our guests gave you all the information you need to make your voice heard in this election. If you haven't already done so, please fill out your ballot and return it right away. Remember, it's too late to mail in your ballot. You should return it to a drop box or a voting center. Visit arapahoevotes.com to find your nearest option. And now to Commissioner Jackson.
Thanks, Commissioner, and thanks again to all of you. We want every Arapahoe County voter to be safe, to be confident, and to be heard by casting a ballot in this election. If you still have questions, all the information you need is at, remember this, arapahoevotes.com. And remember the tips you heard tonight to vote and vote safely. And now, back to our moderator, Dirk.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. And everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. As a reminder, we will post a copy of this recording to our website in the next 24 hours. We hope you have a good night.